Hi everybody. Today I wanted to talk about a project that's been really important to me this year, and that is the Kitimat Museum's facility assessment from the Canadian Conservation Institute, which I'll be calling CCI. Show of hands, has anybody here ever had a CCI facility assessment done before?
No, but
maybe,
we did have some involvement with CCI a few years back.
Okay.
Positive, yeah.
Okay, so this can serve as just a little introduction to the subject. As I'm sure everybody here already knows, one of the biggest challenges facing museums around the world is a lack of space. Our facility, like many across Canada, was built in the late 1960s as a centennial project, and in the intervening years, it's definitely started to show its age. In fact, I found evidence that staff were making proposals for a new facility as far back as the 1980s, so this is not a new issue. Initially, the building was almost entirely open concept display area with little to no designated space for offices or storage. Since then, parts of it have been walled off to create a small curator's office, which Louise and I share, as well as a storage room, and each of them are about 12 meters squared. These rooms are where the bulk of the curatorial work goes on and where most of our on-site artifact and archival collections are housed.
12 foot.
12 foot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Said 12 meters.
No, you're right. It is 12 feet. I'm thinking in metric, but no, you're right, Louise. It is 12 feet. Our storage room, it has 5 bays of shelves, an additional rolling shelf, and a low cabinet. There's also many boxes, some wheeled carts with maps in them, and some frame objects like big photographs and things on the ground. As you can envision, or as you can see in the picture, it's very crowded, so much so that you really have to shift a lot of boxes and things around in order to access things. And in the furthest corner, the bay 4 in the back is virtually inaccessible. And this is on a good day, because when we have a lot of packing materials left over from exhibits like crates or big things of bubble wrap, or if we have a bunch of our things from downstairs being brought up and put into storage so we can have our Christmas gift store, then it becomes even more crowded. So it's kind of like a game of rush hour where you've got to move the little cars around. We also have 2 off-site storage lockers at different locations, but these are just as crowded. So this really makes it difficult to access and care for our collection, as well as to expand them, because we're quickly running out of room to put new artifacts. So our building, it also has quite a few structural and environmental problems. Like many small museums, we have no environmental controls such as air conditioning or humidity controls. We do use 2 dehumidifiers, one in the top floor, one in the bottom floor. Our HVAC system is aging, and there are plans to replace it entirely in 2026 as it simply cannot be repaired. The entire building is made of concrete, so it gets very hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. So we use fans to keep cool in the summer and space heaters in the winter. We have no ceiling sprinklers and no smoke alarms, only heat alarms. We have vehicle exhaust that comes in through our air circulation system when cars are idling in front of the building, which they're not supposed to do, but they do anyway. The door to our second floor balcony has some definite leaking problems in the rain. There's some water damage to the carpet. The stucco on the exterior of the building is peeling and falling off in several places. And due to air pressure differences, our exterior doors they sometimes pop open when they're not locked. So getting the district to respond to these concerns can be a challenge. Now, as Louise will go through in her presentation, we are in talks with the District of Kitimat and the Haisla Nation Council to get a new shared facility with the Haisla Nation. But whether or not this is actually going to happen, we don't know. And if it does, it might be 5, 10, or even more years away. So given all of the kind of obstacles to our collection that we have now, I believed it was better to be proactive and try to get something done sooner, rather than saying, oh, we're going to have a new facility anyway, so it doesn't matter. So faced with all of these challenges, I decided to turn to a source I had heard of from my previous employer, Kira Westby at the Bulkley Valley Museum in Smithers. She had a CCI facility assessment done in 2018, a few years before I started working there, and the differences shown between her before and after pictures were quite stark. So at the beginning of this year, I started looking into getting a CCI facility assessment done. All the information about CCI and the facility assessments can be found on the Government of Canada website. They offer two types of facility-related services. There are the facility assessments, which I'm talking about today, and then there's also something a little more involved, which is called the Capital Project Advisory Service, and that is undertaken when you're actively in the process of developing a new facility or planning major renovations to an existing one. But since we're not quite there yet, I opted for the simpler but still very useful facility assessment. And both services involve an on-site visit from trained conservators and a final written report which will detail possible solutions to the issues the site faces. The application period for a facility assessment goes between January 1st and March 1st of each year. So since I started just like after Christmas break, I had about 2 months to apply. And it's a pretty simple, straightforward, not very daunting process of just filling out answers to questions about your facility, your storage space, what kind of challenges you have, what kind of results you want to come from the project. You can also include supporting documentation like photographs or floor plans of your facility, and all of this can be done online. And any museum, library, archive, or cultural center whose principal role is to acquire, conserve, and exhibit permanent heritage collections is eligible to apply. As for costs, there is a flat rate of $1,000 for a 2-day on-site visit with a final report. So after submitting my application came the long wait to see if we would be accepted. The good news came on April 19th when we were informed by email that we had been approved for a visit, and we were introduced to the 2 CCI representatives who would be spearheading our project. They were Preventative Conservation Advisor Evelyn Eyre and her assistant Samantha Letemplier. We had a short meeting with them over Teams where I introduced them to the facility and what I wanted to get out of the visit. And I also sent them from some floor plans of the museum and a building inspection report that the District of Kitimat had done in 2016, just to help them better understand the circumstances. So Evelyn and Samantha came for their 2-day visit on July 23rd and 24th of this summer. The first day we started off by meeting in our office where Louise and I had an in-depth discussion with them about our current situation, our current challenges, and what we hoped we would accomplish with the visit. This took maybe an hour, maybe a bit more. And then our collections assistant, Magda, and we took them around the interior of the museum and to our off-site storage areas, a process that took most of the day as they very carefully examined everything. They were primarily checking for the 10 agents of deterioration which can damage artifacts. These are physical forces like things falling on or pushing against artifacts, theft and vandalism, fire, water, pests, pollutants, ultraviolet and infrared light, incorrect temperature, incorrect humidity, and disassociation, which is when artifacts can become separated from their contextual information, such as losing their tags or losing their accession numbers that say what they are. When we came back to the museum, they also looked around the exterior of the building as well. They noted some issues like peeling stucco, potential leaks in the foundation, and even the proximity of tree branches to the roof, which can provide a possible pathway for mice and squirrels and other pests to get up into the building. The next day, Evelyn and Samantha looked around on their own in order to get a second look at everything. In the early afternoon, we had a chat that Louise had arranged with the district's Director of Engineering Services and the Deputy Director of Operations from Public Works. We talked about structural and mechanical issues with the building and its utilities. And then finally, Evelyn and Samantha sat down with us and presented a general overview of their findings. So they said that the 2 most pressing issues that we face at the Kitimat Museum and Archives are potential fire damage and lack of storage space. So we're at a relatively high risk for fire damage because our fire suppression systems are inadequate. The large volume of paper documents we have in our archives also adds to this danger, as it does for basically every museum. We do have fire extinguishers on the premises, and they are checked about once or twice a year, but unfortunately we don't have a smoke detector system, only heat detectors, which are good, but the problem with them is they'll only be set off when the fire is like close enough to set them off. Whereas with a smoke detector, you get a much earlier warning, which provides more time to evacuate the building and possibly be able to save the collections or put out the fire. They strongly recommended that we have the district install these and wire them to send alerts directly to the fire department. They also recommended that all heat generating appliances like coffee machines, kettles, and portable heaters, that they not be left unattended while plugged in, that all flammable and combustible materials like cleaning supplies be kept in one place together away from any heat source, that all of our artifact fire extinguishers, we have some fire extinguishers that are part of our collection, one of which is kept in the gift shop storage room. They recommended that they be brought off site so they're not confused for real working fire extinguishers, and that we check with the fire department to ensure that they're empty, and that we come up with an evacuation plan in case of an emergency. Our lack of storage space was highlighted as a particularly pressing issue. Evelyn and Samantha informed us that we are at over 100% capacity, which means there's no way to accept more than like the smallest artifacts. Even though I'd strongly suspected this to be the case myself, it was very helpful and validating to have it confirmed by an outside professional. With overcrowding, there comes a high risk of disassociation, as objects may become separated from their tags, and also damage from crushing, rubbing against each other, or even being dropped or mishandled, because it can be very difficult to safely handle and maneuver objects, especially larger objects, when you're in such a tight, cramped space. Evelyn and Samantha had several recommendations for us. They strongly suggested that we put aside some time to work on reorganizing the storage space. But this is kind of easier said than done for us because we lack a swing space, which is like a secondary space where you can put things, move things, and store things while you're rearranging them. We would need somewhere to move and set aside these boxes just to get into some of the shelves and somewhere to put up tables to lay things out on. Our only large public room that we have is the upstairs gallery, which we use for our monthly art shows and sometimes temporary exhibits. So at their suggestion, we made the decision to close off part of the gallery for 2 blocks of time in 2025 during our slow season in January to February, and then again in September to October. So this does kind of, in a way, take away part of our ability to be open to the public, but we have to balance that with our responsibility to behind the scenes work as well. So this gives us about 3 months to do an inventory of our collections, ensure all the objects are accessioned and in the database, identify candidates for deaccessioning or moving to an education collection, and to try to rearrange our space as efficiently as possible. Only the temporary exhibit half of the upstairs gallery will be closed and roped off so that our permanent Heisler Heritage and Geology sections can still be open to visitors. Even with the 2 shutdowns, we have arranged it so that we'll still be able to bring in 8 art shows to the public throughout 2025, which is about the average number we would have each year anyway. And I feel that seeing museum staff doing behind the scenes work, both in person or on social media, might give the public kind of an interesting look as to what goes on behind the scenes, and maybe even convey to them some of the difficulties we face in terms of limited storage space and workspace. Some other suggestions that Evelyn and Samantha made regarding the lack of space were reevaluating or reconsidering our status as an archaeological repository. We are a repository for any artifacts that are found during archaeological digs in the Kitimat area. But because we are so taxed for space, this may not be possible indefinitely, because we really can't say, oh, you found 3, 4, 5 boxes of material in an archival dig, great, bring them in. It's just not possible. And another thing is looking into reorg, which is something I'd already started doing. It's a definite interest of mine. Reorg is RE-ORG, like reorganization. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a step-by-step approach that was developed by ICROM, International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property, and UNESCO, that helps small to medium-sized heritage institutions reorganize their collection storage rooms and regain access to and control over their collections. Reorg case studies have been done in person in Canada during the 2010s, including at places in BC such as the Haida Gwaii Museum and the Qualicum Beach Museum, as well as internationally in all continents around the world except for Antarctica. There's a wealth of information about REORG online, including on the Government of Canada website and REORG's own YouTube and Tumblr pages. You can even find free downloadable REORG manuals and workbooks online on the ICCROM website, that's ICCROM. And I'll talk more about REORG in just a few moments. But first I wanted to mention another problem that Evelyn and Samantha advised us about, which is arsenic. So we have a large taxidermy collection on display, and historically taxidermy specimens are known to have been prepared using arsenic, which of course is a dangerous chemical. We know that a good chunk of our specimens come from a local Kitimat man who definitely did not use arsenic, but as for the others, we're not sure of them. So at their suggestion, I looked into the provenance of all our taxidermy pieces and discovered that, contrary to what I thought, we had thought that they either came from this one local guy in Kitimat or from the Royal BC Museum, but I found that there were actually quite a few different sources for them, both local and public and private collections, and none of them had any documentation done about arsenic. So I did reach out to the Royal BC Museum regarding the two large groups of taxidermy they had donated to us, but unfortunately they could not help us further. So again, acting on advice I had been given, I reached out to CCI to provide us with our own arsenic testing kits so that we can test our specimens ourselves. We've been sent a set of little swabs in the mail, and we will do a video chat with some CCI staff when they arrive, probably sometime next week, so that they can walk us through how to use them. Once done, the swabs will be mailed back to Ontario where they will be tested, and they will write us up a report about the levels of arsenic we may or may not have. Because of our high volume of taxidermy, we're going to start by prioritizing about 12 pieces that are most easily reachable by the public and which I have seen children touch. And then after that, we will test the others. And it's a pretty cost-effective solution because throughout all of it, the only thing we have to pay for is just the cost of shipping the used swabs back to CCI. So what are our next steps other than the arsenic testing and the planned storage reorganization? Well, back to the topic of reorg, I have signed up for 2 webinar sessions offered by CCI called Kickstarting Your Reorg Project. These will be held on October 17th and 24th over Zoom. They are closed now, so unfortunately they're not open anymore, but they are for, as the title suggests, helping smaller institutions carry out their own storage reorganization projects using the reorg method. I'm really looking forward to these because it'll be great to have this advice from people who have done a reorg themselves before we start ours in the new year. I've also signed up for a longer webinar course from CCI called Response Ready, developing an emergency response plan for heritage institutions. This one is more intense and involves developing your own emergency response plan to respond to scenarios such as fire, flooding, earthquakes, and even things like bomb threats. I think this will be really helpful as we don't currently have an emergency plan tailored to our institution. Finally, as part of the facility assessment agreement, a 10 to 20 page report by Evelyn and Samantha will be provided to us, summarizing our strengths and challenges, identifying and prioritizing each next step in detail. We will receive a draft copy sometime, maybe this month or the next, and then the final copy probably in November or December. I think this will be really great because it will be specifically tailored to our institution, not just the kind of like generic advice that you find online, but specifically about how to improve to overcome each of our challenges that we face. And we will be able to include this report in any funding applications and share it with consultants and collaborators. So I think this will be really important with discussions with the District of Kitimat regarding possible upgrades to the building, like a new HVAC system or fire alarms, as well as a powerful tool in advocating for us to get a new facility. It will really outline the challenges we face and bring them to the forefront. And then again, to upload our end of the bargain, we will pay CCI the $1,000 upon completion of the contract at the end of the year. And then there will also be an evaluation questionnaire that we'll have to fill out, just indicating our satisfaction with the visit. So thank you for listening to my talk about facility assessments. It's something that I'm really enthusiastic about. I was immensely pleased to get our facility assessment done and to hear all the advice that Evelyn and Samantha gave us. And I'm even more looking forward to seeing the steps outlined in the final report for improving our situation. There has been so much effort made in the past by my co-workers and predecessors to safeguard our collection, and I want to carry on that legacy by providing the best possible care to our artifacts in the present and the future. Thank you.